Good morning, sir.
Can you see the screen, the notepad?
Yes, sir.
So in the last class, we have done some problem, and before that, we were working with the conic section. So today, I conclude the conic section, except hyperbola. Hyperbola will take once we take to the Kepler's equation. So at that time, it will be much more useful because we tend to forget over a period of time. So I will discuss that at that time only. So the conic section equation we have written as R equal to L minus V dot R. And this can be reduced to V times R cos theta. So this particular equation is referring to uh, focus line at the origin. For this kind of situation, L equal to R equal to L minus X is valid. Here this point is equal to the focus. This is R vector, this angle is theta. On the other hand, if we have origin line at the center, in this case say the ellipse, then the above equation we need to replace this x by x minus a. X minus r equal to L minus E, and this x needs to be, because the focus was earlier, origin was at the focus, and this distance is EX, so we write here E times x equal to x minus. Um, this will be a times 1 minus E square, EX plus E square A. Where E is not equal to 1. This is valid only if E is not equal to 1. Otherwise, this is not valid. If the origin is translated to from focus, translated from focus to pericenter or the perigee position, in this case your origin is lying here, and this is your conic section, and this is the pericenter. Focus is somewhere lying here. R is always measured from the focus. R is always measured from focus. So here in this case, this distance is x perigee, and x perigee is a times 1 minus c in the case of ellipse. In the case, this is for the case of hyperbola, the perigee position is given by a times 2 minus c, where a is here taken as positive and e is greater than 1. If you do not want to use this notation, then you want to stick to this notation, and x perigee will be written as a times 1 minus e, where e is greater than 1 and a is less than 0. So these two definitions you can use, but you have to take care of this side. So here in this case, this L minus Ex can be written as L here in this case. If we are considering this ellipse, then we know that R equal to L by 1 plus E cos theta. And L is the point where theta equal to 90 degree. So R equal to the corresponding value of L you can see from this graph. This is R equal to 1. This is the position. This quantity is L. And these are connected together. We also, with the R perigee already we have written A times 1 minus C, and L equal to A times 1 minus C square. So this becomes A times 1 minus C times 1 plus C. So this quantity is R perigee. So therefore R perigee plus 1 plus C. X perigee or R perigee, anything we can write here. Let us say this R perigee we write here. R perigee times C will cancel out and C is just so in terms of Cartesian coordinates, it can be written as R square equal to R perigee plus X This is the point here. This distance is R perigee equal to A times 1 minus C. And you are measuring any distance. Then this quantity, as we have derived on the previous trick, this is r plus t minus Ex square. We have written here Rp minus Ex, R equal to Rp minus Ex. So this way we can keep shifting the origin from one place to other place. While here in this case, this can be simplified to be and this is valid for all orbits. Whether E less than 1, greater than 1 or smaller than 1, it does not matter. Valid for all orbits, that is E less than 1 equal to 1 to greater than 1. And all other forms you cannot directly apply them that way. Okay, anyway, you will find this stuff in many books. You can refer to them for that. Hyperbola case we will take later on. Right now we are not going to take. In the case of hyperbola, the center lies here, and then we have two directrix here, and then the hyperbola appears like this. This is the focus of the hyperbola. One is occupied focus and another one is non-occupied focus, empty vacant focus or empty focus, they say. Center to perigee distance, the distance is A, and then this constitutes apogee. From this focus, this is perigee, and from this focus, then this becomes apogee. While this is the center line here, so center to the perigee, this is the semi-major axis A, which comes here with a negative sign. No, so center to perigee we have, this is fine. Center to perigee we have written as minus A. And this is the focus to the focus distance, as in the case of ellipse, we have written as AE, so this quantity becomes minus A, where E is greater than 1. So therefore, this quantity is greater than this one in magnitude. Then a line which is asymptotic to this curve, this angle will be indicated by beta here on this and this side. This is asymptotic line. And this is R vector at any point. So R becomes infinity, so at that time you get this asymptote. So we'll discuss about this later on once the actual problem appears. These two are directed. This angle here we can show as theta. So once R tends to infinity, we show this as theta infinity. Theta infinity corresponds to R infinity. In the case of parabola, this distance is L by 2, this is the focus here. And this distance is also L by 2. This is by definition, because this distance divided by this distance we have defined as e. So 1c equal to 1, so this distance and this distance becomes equal. So quantity from here to here, this is your L. So these things will help you in solving some of the problems. So I will not go much deeper into this. I will circulate you, give you the typed version of this part. So let us take one more issue related to conic section. If ellipse can also be drawn like this. We have one circle here. I have drawn a circle, but here it's appearing as an ellipse. So it's a software distortion problem. Another circle is like this. Draw a radius from the center to the outer circle. And then draw a horizontal like this, and draw a perpendicular from this point to this point. Similarly, take another point here, draw a horizontal from this place, and draw a perpendicular here. So the points which are getting generated now. Once you come to this point, so this is the point, other point, similarly it can be drawn. And once you join these points, it generates an ellipse. So if this radius is B and this radius is A, because immediately you can see that the semi-major axis of the ellipse will be D, and semi-minor axis and semi-major axis of the ellipse will be D. So, these are some of the geometrical information which will help you in solving various problems. Now, already we have calculated this B using the information that this is B and not to this point. From this point to this point, this quantity is A, and from here to here, this quantity is also A. We have looked into this last time, and based on that, and this is the focus here, this quantity is A from this place to this place, and therefore this quantity is A times 1 minus A. This whole thing is A. Here also this is A. The B equation we have calculated A times 1 minus A square under it. Using the conic section equation, what we have developed earlier, this can also be worked out. In the conic section equation, we have L by 1 plus P cos theta. this is the focus, and say this point is here, this is B and this is P. This angle we write as theta. This is known to us, this quantity is A, and these are the information available to us. To weigh the quantity from this place to this place. This will be R perigee plus R apogee, where R perigee is this distance, and from here to here this distance is R apogee. This is 2A, and R perigee we can write by writing E cos 0, and R apogee L by 1 plus E cos theta becomes 180 degree. This quantity is 2A. This is information we are going to use. From this place we are aware of this quantity is A, and therefore if this we write as R, so B can be written as R square minus A square E square. And therefore this can be written as L by 1 plus E cos theta whole square minus A square E square. Left hand side B square. Now inserting the value for the L, this becomes A square 1 minus E square whole square divided by 1 plus E cos theta whole square. Also we have L cos 180 minus theta, we write like this. R, this is the quantity R, so R cos theta. R cos theta, here theta is greater than 180 degrees, so we are taking this projection here, A. So R cos, instead of writing theta, we write here 180 minus theta when this quantity is A. And R equal to L times L divided by 1 plus E cos theta, and this becomes cos theta with minus sign, so this we write as minus E. And once we solve this, putting L equal to A times 1 minus E square cos theta, and on the right hand side minus E times 1 plus E cos theta, and solve it. So solving this will give you, this is E equal to minus cos theta. And once you insert this cos theta equal to minus E here, L square 1 minus E square whole square. So these two cancel out, and this is E square times 1 minus E square, and therefore this implies P equal to A times 1 minus E square under. So this is another way of doing it. So this is part of geometry, and you can solve it this in a number of ways, the same problem. If you have any question, you can ask me. Any clarification required to this extent. Hyperbola we will check later on once the actual problem comes up. Okay, now we have already covered the central force motion. So based on central force motion, now we can take the actual problem. In the central force motion, I can continue to get the orbit parameters and other things. Okay, but it's better to do it for the two-body problem because as such, uh, the central force motion is valid only for a small satellite, not for all bodies. In that case, only the center of mass can be assumed to be located at the center of Earth effectively for the two-body problem, so the problem is solved. So instead of dealing with the central force motion further, we take two-body problem and then look into the same kind of property we again get, but this time the things will be little different as we see from the working further. Two-body problem. So we have two particles, M1 and M2, and they are moving under mutual gravitational attraction. So dealing with this kind of system, it's required that already I have stated that Newton's law, the second law is applicable only in an inertial plane. You cannot apply Newton's second law in any non-inertial plane. That's not possible. So therefore, we need to choose here uh, because this system is free from the external force. We have this system, so we choose the center of mass somewhere here, joining this line. And this is the center of mass, and we can fix a reference frame here, and then describe the motion of these two particles M1 and M2. Another way can be that I can take these two particles M1 and M2 and take the reference frame here as x, y, z. This is the radius vector r1, the radius vector r2. Okay, and then we describe the motion of individual particles under mutual gravitational attraction. R12 is the distance between these two particles, R12. Now on this particle, force will be acting here in this direction, S12. So depending on the vector that we write, so here it will appear as plus sign. This is central force motion. The force is directed from this center to this center, and R12 vector is along this direction, so force is along the same direction, so this is the way it is written. Gm1 m2 are divided by R12 whole cube times R12. This is not unit vector, this is a vector. If we write in terms of unit vector, so this part will be R12 square. This is our equation number 1. The second equation, the same way we can write as and on this particle the force will be acting along this direction, so F to 1, the force acting from 2 to 1. Now instead of taking this approach where the center of mass, we take the center of mass and then get this distance from here to here and just get this distance from here to here, knowing that this distance is r1 to, and then writing the equation of motion. What we can do, we can also study the motion of one particle with respect to other, how it will appear, and that we can write as r2 minus r1. That is the motion of particle r2 with respect to particle 1. And nowhere we are violating Newton's second law. Because this difference frame is an inertial reference frame, and in the inertial reference frame we have written these two equations. Now if we subtract it by dividing m1 on both sides here in this case, and by n2 both sides here in this case, and then subtracting to get r2 minus 1 r1, and this will be written as, so this is the relative motion equation. So how, if you are sitting on particle 1, so how the motion of particle 2 it appears. And this is the thing quite often we are interested in. Now before solving this problem, we need to realize certain things. See, here we have two second order vector differential equation. Two second order vector differential equation. So in this equation, we have the upper one, in this equation we will have how many constants are involved. Because this is a vector in 3 dimensions, so this is having 3 components. So as a whole, in this equation, if you integrate it, you will get 6 constants. Because you will have equations like this: d square x by dt square, d square y by dt square, and d square z by dt square. So 2 constants of integration involved here, 2 here, 2 here. So total 6 constants. Similarly, in this also you will have 6 constants involved. So total 6 plus 6, 12 constants are involved. The question arises, can we identify all these 6 constants? Numerically, given the initial condition, you can integrate this differential equation, non-linear second order differential equation these are, and get the future points. But the analytical solution, if we look for, is it possible to identify all these 12 constants? The answer is, it will come later on, whether we can do or not. But if we reduce the problem in this format, so here in this case, this appears as one differential equation only of second order. Okay, and vector nature. So therefore here 6 constants are involved. So can we identify these 6 constants here in this case? So this is the question raised. So in the two-body problem, the first step is identifying these constants. Constants of integration. So for doing this, if we add equation 1 and 2, We can see that we get in this format. And on the right hand side, we will have G N1 N2 divided by R1 to whole cube. And this quantity is 0 because this cancels out. Therefore, integrating this once, also by dt gives us one constant which we can write as C1, or let us say we write this as Q. Next time we integrate it, into times R1 N1 into times R2 . So how many constants are involved here in A and B? How many constants are involved in these two equations? Anybody? Anybody can tell me?
Sir, 12 again.
No. This is the equation where R1, R2, R3 we have integrated. This vector is of dimension 3. This is of 3 dimensions. Similarly, B is of 3 dimensions. You are just integrating this combined together. Now it makes a second order differential equation, a vector differential equation, and therefore total 6 constants. So this A and B together, they constitute 6 constants. So we have identified these 6 constants. And there is some message hidden here in this place. This quantity is nothing but M1 plus M2 times RCM. This is the definition of the center of mass. So RCM is equal to VT plus V divided by total. So what does it say? If quantity A equal to 0, this is a 0 vector. A writing like this, if I simply write 0, so still it implies that it is having 3 parts, 0, 0, 0. So the center of mass, if initially at rest, it remains at rest because B is a constant vector, A is a constant vector. If initially this is not at rest, that means A is not 0, then it will keep growing with time, but it varies linearly. Okay, so just the RCM is a function of time. And this is visible from this equation. In this equation, immediately you can see this equation number 1 here. If you differentiate this equation, so you will get this one. And this equation is nothing but we have written in this format. So this implies d by dt m times RCM is equal to Q. So the center of mass velocity. From here what you get? V center of mass is equal to A divided by C. The center of mass moves with a constant velocity. And this is quite obvious if you look into the Newton's law. A system, a particle which is free from external force, it keeps moving, it remains in the same state of either motion or the rest. So it's a very obvious. The two particle system is there and it's a free from external force. There is no external force acting on the system. It's a mutual gravitational attraction. Just like two particles, once it collides together, and after sticking to each other, then if you look into their motion, so still the internal force is there between them. So the same way, here the mutual gravitational attraction is acting like an internal force to the system. And therefore, the center of mass of these two particle system, it moves with a constant velocity, or either it is at rest, depending on the initial condition, how it was right in the beginning. So this way we have been able to identify these fixed constants which are A and B in the vector format. So if you have n number of particles, still the same thing will be applicable because they are moving under mutual gravitational attraction free from external force. So their center of mass will also be either at rest or it will move with constant velocity. Now equation 1 can be written as R1 double dot into 3 times into similarly equation number 2 can be written as subtracting from equation 5 the equation number 4. This gives us, this is a vector from 1 to 2. So this is R12 double dot. We are taking, if this is 1 and this is 2, so we are writing this as R12. This is the point O, this is your R1 and this is this vector is R2 minus R1. So subtracting we get this quantity here R1 double dot. G will be common R1 to whole cube. We have M1 minus M2. M1 times R2 1. M1 times R2 1 minus M2 times R1. R12 can be taken out. This quantity is nothing but minus R12, so we can put here a minus sign, and this becomes M1 plus M2 R12. So the particle 2, its motion with respect to particle 1, it can be described using this expression here, equation. And this is of the same format as our central force motion equation. So all the properties which we worked out there, let's say applicable here in this case also. Because it's written in terms of R12, so this is also central force motion. So directly we cannot write because both the particles 1 and 2, they are accelerating. So it's not possible that you just subtract from R2 minus R1 and then start writing the expression. And because of that only this term has appeared. M1 plus M2. So here in this case, because this is the equation of motion of the second particle, equation of relative motion, second particle, and second particle mass is getting modified. So it's appearing as the changed mass as m1 plus m2. The original mass is not appearing. So this is the modification. In the case, say, we have the Earth and a small satellite. So in the case, if we assume m1 to be the Earth, mass of the Earth, and m2 to be the M satellite, so obviously in this case, this is around 10 to the power 24 perhaps, and kg, and this will be some 1000 kg say. So this is much larger. So in that case, you can neglect this m2, and simply it will be like what we have written in the central force motion equation. R double dot you can write as G times m earth divided by R cube times R vector equal to C. So this part you should be very careful in writing that we, and also you should remember that we are not violating Newton's second law. Newton's second law is applicable only in the inertial frame, and we are following that. So therefore, from this particular derivation, we can simplify this as d square r by dt square plus gm divided by r cube times r is equal to 0, where r12 we have replaced as r, and m we are replacing as m1 plus m2. E times m we are writing as mu phi of m. So all the properties we have worked out for the central force motion, therefore this is applicable here in this case. That is, h is a constant. This motion, h is a constant, this implies two particle system planet similarly. The second one was energy is conserved, but remember here in this case, because r is the relative distance, so it's conserved only in relative sense. This we are not writing in the absolute sense. This the solution which will appear as b square divided by 2 minus mu by r equal to equal. Energy is conserved in a relative sense. And third, the orbit of particle 2 will have a period of t given by 2 pi a cube divided by mu. That means 2 pi a cube divided by mu equal to g times m1 plus m2. So from here we will have m1 plus m2 equal to 4 pi square a2 divided by g times k. And this equation can be used for finding the mass of different planets. Used for finding mass of different planets. So in the case of the Jupiter, It's a satellite. Europa is here. So we know the period of Jupiter around the Sun. So take one case for this and take one case here this M1 as M Jupiter and M2 is M Europa. क्लास
मेरा क्लास है
नहीं मेरा क्लास
ठीक मैं बात नहीं कुछ काम है तो बोलिए
नहीं So in the case of Jupiter, we can write this as mass of Jupiter, M2 as the mass of Europa. Then take the M1 as M Sun and M2 as M Jupiter. So M Sun, M Jupiter, this time period is known to you. And the time period of Europa is also known around Jupiter. It's all measured. Okay? Using the telescope, you can observe the motion and you can note the period of the different planetary satellites. And then divide them. So here in this case, if you are knowing M1, M2, the mass of the Sun, mass of the Jupiter, if it is known to you, okay, so you can solve for the mass of the Europa. Or otherwise, as we know that the mass of the Jupiter is much smaller as compared to the mass of the Sun, so M2 can be ignored as compared to M1. Okay, I show it on the next page. Okay, here in this case, M Sun plus M Jupiter, then replacing M1 by M2 like that. So 4 pi A Jupiter whole cube divided by this is G times time period of Jupiter square. And similarly, we can write here M Europa, M Jupiter plus M Europa is equal to 4 pi A Europa whole cube divided by G times T Europa whole square. And then divide it. So once we divide, so M Sun plus M Jupiter divided by M Jupiter plus M Europa 4 pi G, this will cancel out and then left with A Jupiter whole cube by T Jupiter square and A Europa whole cube T Europa square. The right hand side is known. So these are all measure points. So once these quantities are known, the other part we can determine. So here in the case of say the mass of Jupiter, it's a much larger as compared to the Europa. Jupiter is very large. So this can be ignored here and you can write here MJ and upper part you can write simply as M Sun. And then this on the right hand side is known and therefore M Jupiter can be computed. So just by measuring the time period and the semi-major axis, you can get approximately mass of different planets. In the case of Mercury, because it is not having any satellite, okay, therefore its mass is calculated using the perturbation theory. As the Mercury orbit, it rotates over a period of time. And therefore it is computed from there. It is not having any satellite. So here this is approximate way of writing it, how to find the mass of the Jupiter. But this can also be worked out exactly. And that is done using the estimation method. And for that, this is not the course, but it's possible that using all the observation Jupiter mass can be calculated much more precisely. And in this respect, we have, while I was working for Chandrayaan 1, so at that time we had DE405. This is developmental ephemeris. Developmental ephemeris 405. This is a set of data provided by NASA, okay, which is developed by observing various satellites through radar. And then NASA also provides a JPL ephemeris program. JPL ephemeris program. Using this program, you can predict position of any planet within a meter of accuracy. In the case of Moon, it's within meter of accuracy. So in the case of other planets which are at far distance, this accuracy decreases. So JPL ephemeris program, once used with this developmental ephemeris data, so you will be able to know the planet of the Moon with respect to the Earth or either the Sun, and Moon position with respect to Earth or either with respect to Sun, or other planets position with respect to Sun or with respect to Earth. So this way, then if you are planning the interplanetary mission, you have to send satellite from Earth to any other planet. So what trajectory it has to follow, where that planet will be at the time it is getting captured. So everything can be computed. So nowadays, this developmental ephemeris, because I did it something like 2007, 8, 9. So at that time, D405. So this was the latest one. Now it has been updated. Okay, any question till now? No question? Are you connected?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If no question, then I can move to next page. So for evaluation purpose, we will have one exam and rest other I will take Viva. So next week I will have one Viva, whatever I have covered till now. And this way continuously I will keep evaluating, and toward the end we will have one final exam. So till now, whatever we have done, in that we have assumed that E prime is equal to minus mu by 2a. This is for the case of the ellipse. And E prime equal to mu by 2a. This is for hyperbola. And E prime equal to 0. This is for parabola. But how it is appearing, we have not proved it. One very easy way of evaluating this is for the case of the ellipse. Is to just see that at the perigee position, you can write this R as RP. which is equal to a times 1 minus e, and velocity here will be given by v perigee, which will be r perigee times theta dot, and theta dot we know this will be r perigee, theta dot equal to h by r square. So this quantity is h by r perigee. So therefore here we can write v perigee equal to h by r perigee whole square minus mu by r perigee, this is p prime. H equal to also mu times L, as we have calculated earlier, worked out while doing the conic section part, the central motion part. So mu times a times 1 minus c square. So this will appear as a root here, mu a times 1 minus c square, which this is h square. So this will be under root of this. Whole square divided by r perigee, a times 1 minus c. The squaring here, this gives us mu times a 1 minus c square divided by a times 1 minus a square times 1 minus c square, mu by a times 1 minus. So this gets reduced to mu by a and 1 plus c divided by 1 minus c minus mu divided by a 1 by 1 minus c. Once we step here, directly it will give minus mu by 2. Minus mu square okay, 2 factorial missing. Just 2 we have missed out, so this is 1 by 2 here. 1 by 2. Mu by a and 1 by 2. 1 plus 2 divided by 1 minus 2. Mu already we have taken out, so 1 by 2 minus 2. So E prime is minus mu by 2. So this is we have written for the case of ellipse. Similarly, you can write for the case of hyperbola. And in the case of parabola, because a is infinity, this quantity will turn out to be 0. This particular equation we have used here, this can also be used for finding the escape velocity as you have done in your physics. V square by 2 minus mu by r equal to E prime. So at the initial point, and this is V square by 2 minus mu by r at the final point. In the case your final point V equal to 0, just you want to make it escape, and this mu by this becomes infinity, r final equal to infinity. On the left hand side, this is the escape velocity divided by 2, and mu by, if it is earth, this is the RE. So this is your escape velocity. So what you are assuming here, that this is the earth, and here you give velocity v, escape, and potential energy here in this case becomes minus mu by RE, which is the radius of the earth. So it is situated on the surface of the earth, and suddenly you are imparting this step to you. E prime can also be written as 1 by 2 mu L infinity square minus 1. You can simply insert the value for L in terms of K and E, so this will get reduced to minus mu by L. So this is the most simple way of working out this problem, how E prime is equal to minus mu by 2. A more elaborate way and a proper way of doing this can also be done, but you have to use your full mathematics. I hope whatever I am discussing is clear to everybody, because nobody is responding, so I don't know, neither I am seeing it. I don't know whether you are understanding or not.
Sir, it's clear.
Sir, can you show the last page again? Oh, okay, sir, thanks.
Okay, another way of working out to E prime equal to minus mu by 2 for the case of velocity. So our basic equation, which remains the same. So we need to start with writing V square is equal to r dot square plus r times theta dot whole square. This is the radial velocity and this is the normal velocity. That means you have here, this is the focus here, this is R, so R dot is along this direction and R times theta dot is this. So therefore velocity will be tangent to this is your V, tangent to the trajectory. This angle is theta. So we need to find out first the R dot and R times theta dot, insert here, and then thereafter we can solve it. So in this process, we use this equation R equal to L by 1 plus E cos theta, and therefore R dot can be written as minus L by 1 plus E cos theta square, and then times differentiation of this part, which will be E sin theta, this minus sign, so this minus minus that makes it plus, and then theta dot. Only sign. Okay, therefore V square, it will become R dot square plus R square theta dot square. R dot square from this place we can write as L E sin theta times theta dot. Theta dot square. So R dot is this quantity, so R dot square will be the square of this whole thing. So L E sin theta square we have already written, theta dot square. So theta dot square will be H by R square whole square. R times theta dot. So R square times theta dot square, theta dot is H by R square. So this quantity, actually we can write this as H square by R to the power 4, which is becomes R square. Okay, and then this can be simplified. So in the next step, just what we can do here is L by 1 plus E cos theta whole square. Just we separate it out and we write here the rest of the things. E square sin square theta divided by 1 plus E cos theta whole square. And this is H square by R to the power 4. And plus this is H square by R square. This quantity is L by 1 plus E cos theta is nothing but R. So this becomes R square. E square sin square theta So this is h by r square e square sin square theta divided by 1 plus e cos theta whole square plus theta square.
Sir, sir, it should h square. Yes, sir.
Theta square is not. And then we can simplify this. So therefore, v square this becomes h by r whole square and 1 plus e square sin square theta divided by 1 plus e cos theta whole square. E cos theta and plus e square sin square theta. Cos theta plus e square divided by some more simplification is possible if we write h square here as mu times L. This becomes h square becomes mu times L and below R there's other things inserted here. So mu times L by R is 1 plus e cos theta. Here this is R square, so 1 R will remain here. Immediately we can see that v square is equal to vc square times 1 plus 2e cos theta plus e square divided by 1 plus e cos. Where vc is the velocity in circular orbit at that point. Velocity in circular orbit at the point. And this equation is very useful in finding out velocity at any point in the orbit, provided you know the eccentricity of the orbit and theta, which is the true anomaly here in this case. Now rest of the things are simple to work out.
Sir, can you for 1 minute go to the last page? Yes, sir. Now you can go to the new page.
This equation you will require frequently in solving the problem. V square equal to mu by r, where r is known to you, and the eccentricity of the orbit is known to you, and true anomaly of the orbit is known to you, at what point you are looking at. Therefore, E prime becomes v square by 2 minus mu by r. So, mu by r we can take as common, and we have 1 plus 2e cos theta v square divided by 1 plus 3 cos theta. So we can take it outside here and write this. So v cos theta is cancelled out. This is k square minus 1 mu by 2. And r times 1 plus e cos theta, r equal to L by 1 plus e cos theta. We can replace it here. 2 times L. 2 times L equal to a times 1 minus a square. So this gets reduced to minus mu x. So this is a rigorous way of doing it. And once you know this, so in the orbit also you can calculate the velocity with the v squared divided by 2 minus mu by r, so minus mu by 2 for elliptical orbit. So from here we have v squared by 2. If we multiply by 2 on both the sides, this is v squared 2 mu by r minus mu by 2 by r minus mu by. And later on we will see that this can be derived in some other way. This is also called Risch-Levi integral. In the case it is hyperbolic orbit, so this minus will be replaced by plus. In the case of parabola, a equal to infinity, so this part goes and only we are left with 2 mu by r. This equation is frequently used in space dynamics for finding the velocity of the particle at different points. Can you go to the next page?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we have been looking into, this is the integral of motion. Integral of motion so for two body system, we have total 12 constants involved. Out of these 12 constants, what we have identified, the 6 appearing in center of mass equation. So these 6 are identified. Okay. And then the two body system we have worked for. So here one more constant, 3 more constants can be identified, and this is that H is a constant. Because the system is free from the external torque, so just as we have written d square r by dt square for the two body system, mu by r cube r is equal to 0. In this form we have written. So from here we get another 3 constants. This is in a relative sense, and also in the combined sense you will get H is a constant because it's a free from external torque also. The system is free from external torque and therefore H remains a constant. So 3 constants are identified. One more constant can be identified, which is energy is constant. Energy is constant. So a total of 10 constants are identified. While there are 12 constants involved, so in explicit sense we cannot solve this problem. Okay. But it so happens that in most of the cases you have one mass very large, another mass very small. So this case gets simplified here. The center of mass of the combined system is moved to the heavier one, and then the problem gets simplified. So we will take up this issue later on, but as a whole we are able to identify 10 constants. The same thing happens with the 3 body system. 3 body system. So here in this case we will have total 6 into 3 constants involved, and those means total 18 constants. And while we can identify only 10 constants identified. Ten constants. So 8 constants they cannot be determined. So it so happens that 3 body onwards these problems are unsolvable in analytical sense. Okay. In numerical way you are always integrating the equation of motion and you can find the different particle positions at different times given the initial position. But in explicit closed form solution, it's not possible. So 3 body problem system, closed form, analytical solution, not possible. Here in this case, we get the complete solution only when one body is very heavy as compared to the other one. While it is not possible in this case. In this case, even that is not possible, but certain restricted solutions are available. But certain restricted solutions are available, which we call as the restricted free body problem. Which we call as the restricted free body problem. So even if we take the central force motion, So in the central force motion, our differential equation is of order second order differential equation. Three scalar equations are involved therein. So therefore, this equation d square r by dt square plus mu by r cube r equal to 0. This also involves 6 constants of integration. And out of these 6 constants of integration, we need to identify them. So out of them, they are A is theta. These are coplanar. In the orbital plane itself, these are determined. The other constants are capital omega, small omega, and I. And we can show it like this. Is the inertial plane x, y, and z. This is the orbit. So with respect to this point, let us name as n and n prime. This point is rho. Satellite may be lying here. This is r. This is the perigee point, let us say. And this is the nodal angle. Capital omega, this is called the nodal angle. Here the Earth is located at the center O, and the orbit is shown like this. So the inertial frame located at the center of Earth means it's not rotating. Earth is rotating, but not this frame. This is capital omega. This angle from here to here, this we write as a small omega. This is called the argument of perigee. I is the angle of inclination, and this can be shown as if we have perpendicular to the orbit. If I show it like this angle, then this is I. And also with the xy plane, with this xy plane, the angle that this orbit makes, this is I. So this is angle of inclination. If we have written as the semi-major axis, and E as the eccentricity, and theta as the true number. So theta, we'll write this as theta at t0. So at any instant of time, so these 6 parameters, they constitute orbital elements of the, what we call the orbital elements or parameters of the orbit. And they are convertible with x, y, z and x dot, y dot, z dot. Means the velocity components and position component, this can be converted into this and back and forth. However, for advanced study, the true anomaly we do not take, rather the time, as I have discussed earlier, the time of perigee passage, tau equal to time of perigee passage. This is counted as the parameter rather than taking theta. Because theta happens to be a variable, so only once you take it at a particular instant of time, so this becomes a constant. So in fact, this is not, theta is not a constant, but only once you fix the t, then it becomes a constant. So therefore, the time of perigee passage is taken as another constant of the orbit. Now this constant tau, this appears in your, once we write r equal to L by 1 plus e cos theta we have written. So in fact this we wrote in this format, theta minus beta. So here, this beta angle, this was the reference angle I told. So from there you are measuring. So from the reference position, this beta, this is one constant involved. Here in L, you have A and E are involved. Beta is one part you have written it, but once we take beta as the thing, as a constant of the orbit, then theta will not be considered. So overall, A, E and theta or either beta, they are involved in the orbit as the orbit constant. Rest others, which are capital omega, small omega and I, these are calculated separately. So while the three are involved here in this. So we can determine these elements one by one. So assuming that this is a two bodies problem and it has been reduced into this format, then we can solve the problem. So it can be, all the six constants can be identified in an analytical way. The solution of the system is possible in practice.
Sir, is the nodal line always in the xy plane?
Nodal line is always in the xy plane. We choose like that.
Okay.
Argument of perigee will vary. It will go up, down, whatever of the xy plane. But the nodal line always lies in the xy plane. Why it is so? Say here, this is the plane. So, in the case of the Earth and Moon, this Earth is here, and Moon orbit, say it rises from here and then descends here. In fact, once you look from the Earth, the Moon orbit rises in the east and then goes toward the west. So the rising point, this is the rising node, or called the ascending node. And the point where it goes down this xy plane is called the descending node. So this will become your n and this will become n prime. While in astrology, the same thing, you call this as the Rahu, and this point is turned by Ketu. So this is the point where the orbit cuts this xy plane. Ascending node and descending node. So we discuss here the integrals of motion of the two-body problem. So we will take both the vector approach and the scalar approach. It will be useful. Getting into the details of the problem is always useful. So quickly, because I told you right in the beginning that R can be written as R equal to L minus E dot R. So eccentricity is appearing as a vector. So we prove it. So this appears as an integral of motion. Into body problem. So in the reduced form, we have written like this. For mu by R cube times R. This is the way in the reduced form we have written. Multiply both sides by h vector. which is the angular momentum vector, H equal to R cross V. This quantity is nothing but d by dt r dot cross h, because h is a constant, this is a constant vector of r dot cross h. If you differentiate this will be r double dot cross h. H is a constant, therefore the other differentiation will be zero. So this quantity gets reduced to this format, and then on the right hand side we have mu by r cube, and we can expand it, r dot v So this is nothing but r dot v is nothing but r dot r times r dot. So here we can work it out. R times v is nothing but r dot the normal velocity component and radial velocity component, and r vector is here, you can write as r times er cap dot r times theta dot e theta cap. So er cap dot e theta cap, this is 0 because they are perpendicular to each other, and we are left with r times r dot. So this is nothing but your r times r dot. And then the r factor is here. This quantity becomes r square, and this is your r dot. d by dt, this can be written as mu by r times r. If you differentiate it, the first term appears mu by minus r square r dot, and then this r vector appears here. And the other part then mu by r times r dot. Okay. This directly ends with this one. Therefore, integrating it, this gives you integrating with respect to t this b vector is different than earlier we have written. This is a standard notation used here. Now we can see here that if this is the r vector and this is the v vector, so which will be perpendicular to both of them. And h cross r dot means v vector is here. So this implies that h cross r dot cross h, this lies in the RV plane. This vector, this lies in the RV plane. That is in the plane of the origin. this is also in the plane of orbit. Therefore, vector B is lying in the plane of the orbit. So the B lies in the plane of the orbit. And if we rewrite this quantity as r dot h divided by mu, so this quantity is written as E. If you write this as E, so this vector, this is the eccentricity vector. It appears as the eccentricity vector. And B equal to mu times E bar. This is also called Laplace vector. And using this equation, you can get the conic section equation here. So I will quickly derive this conic section equation and wind up this. But we are already 11:59. So we have here r
So
dot
can you
cross.
please explain once again how it lies in the RV plane?
So we'll take up later on because I just want to wind up this. We'll check in the next class. Mu r by r plus b. This is the equation that we have derived. Take dot product. Take dot product with r on both sides. R cross r dot this we can write as r cross r dot h triple dot product this is nothing but your quantity h, so this becomes h square. Divide both sides by mu, so this becomes this quantity is h. So h dot h, this equal to h square. Okay, so h square by mu, and on the right hand side we have r plus r dot b, which we can write as r plus rb cos theta. Let us write it here in this way. We can take r as common, 1 plus b cos theta, and therefore r equal to h square divided by mu 1 plus b cos theta. So this is the standard conic section equation. And this is b by mu. This gets divided by mu, which appears as 12 by 1 plus b cos theta. So this is the standard conic equation. That means v by mu, this quantity is v, but in the vector format, the same thing we have written as mu. So this proves eccentricity is a vector. This earlier we have written in the conic section equation, r equal to L minus E dot r. Okay, coplanar, seeing the B vector, it is coplanar with the R vector, etc. There is nothing great in that. Take the orbit from here to here, this is your R vector, this is the V vector. H vector is perpendicular to the orbit, so therefore V cross H vector, this is lying along this direction, either this direction, whatever, depending on the direction of V. So it's always in the plane of the orbit. So we stop here. If you have any question, you can ask me. Otherwise, I'll go for attendance.
Sir, I have two questions.
Hmm.
Sir, first, when we derived for two-body problem that in terms of R12, we got that it's a central force motion.
Which
So-
one? Which one? Where? This part or?
No, sir,
Sorry.
earlier. Sir, when we just started two-body problem, we derive R12.
This one. This one.
Yes, sir. Sir, the one in the box. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
This is
sir.
this is relative equation of motion.
Yes, sir. So, here we like if this R12 represents the position vector of another body from the first body. So here, if we
this is body one, this is body two. So R12 is
Yeah.
nothing but this from here.
Sir,
to
so my doubt is that if we conserve angular momentum from one of the body, then we get that that torque is zero, but that body is also moving. So it's an like we cannot conserve angular momentum from a non-inertial frame of reference, right? So how are we getting h is constant?
if what your question is, I hope everybody is having time. He has asked the question that in the two-body problem, what we have derived h is a constant for d square r by dt square plus mu by r cube r equal to 0. So here h is turning out to be a constant vector. Okay, his question is that it's a relative motion, and what he is telling that it's a in non-inertial reference frame. This we have derived. This is his question, that it has been derived in a non-inertial reference frame, and therefore how this can be a constant.
Sir, like for one body problem, since for one body problem our frame of reference was a non.
Inertial frame.
Yeah, so for that it was okay, but for two body problem, R12 represents the position vector of the second body with respect to first body, and if with respect to first body, if we conserve, we cannot conserve angular momentum, right?
No, so see that what we have done. You have done in your physics, basic physics, R1 double dot and R2 double dot. This is the acceleration of the two particles in the inertial frame, isn't it? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then what we are doing, we have subtracted from R2 double dot R1 double dot. So effectively, we are applying the D'Alembert's principle and bringing this particle 1 in dynamic equilibrium, not at rest, dynamic equilibrium. This is called dynamic equilibrium. D'Alembert's principle, once we apply, it comes to dynamic equilibrium. That means either if it is moving, so it is moving. If it is at rest, it will remain at rest. So then it becomes non-accelerating once you have applied this. So you are subtracting here R1 double dot is the acceleration of this, and from this you have subtracted R1 double dot. And here R2 double dot is the acceleration of this, and from there also you have subtracted R1 double dot. So then this frame becomes inertial, and then you have applied this. So R2 minus R1, then d square by dt square. So this description is again in the inertial frame. So this is though this is the relative, but this description is of the same thing you do for a pendulum moving in a cart and exiting once you are trying to solve this problem. Got the point?
Yes, sir. And sir, my second question is the last thing that we discussed, which was integral motion for two body problem.
What's your name? Your name?
Sir, Pawan.
Okay, Pawan, I hope everybody is free because it's already around 11:59. If they have class, then they will have to join. You can discuss with me, and if
Okay, sir.
others they do not have class, they can stay or either they can leave. So let me take the attendance first. Shivam, and for attendance, 20 marks it's there. Remember, if below 50%, 0 marks. Only after 50% marks start, and it's uniformly distributed thereafter. Shivam, Meena, Raghav, Raghav,
Present, sir.
Vivek,
Present, sir.
Parth Srivastava,
Present, sir.
Hariharan,
Present, sir.
okay, Giri,
Present, sir.
Saurya Srivastava,
Present, sir.
this Ashish,
Present, sir.
and Nishchay,
Present, sir.
Nishchay,
Present, sir.
Asutosh, Pawan,
Present, sir.
Aditya,
Present, sir.
Ankit. Okay, so now this what is your second question?
Yeah, sir, the last thing that we discussed in integral motion in two body problem, there we get that B vector. So,
D
sir,
vector, okay.
sir, B ball.
Sir, B vector. Here it is, we are seeing. This
Yes,
one?
sir. Yes, sir. B vector. Sir, so this B vector will have three components. So will it provide for three constants?
This one. No, see, here, once you are discussing this part, so here we are looking at this in terms of the orbit. So total as a whole, the basic equation we have chosen, this one. This is having a total of 6 constants.
Yes, sir.
So, but here in this case, this B vector, this is fixed along a particular direction, which is along the perigee. Okay, so this is not taken as the 3 constant, though this is having in XYZ reference frame. In the inertial reference frame, it will have the 3 components, but here if you look in this orbit, this is fixed along a particular direction. So this is taken just as a 1 constant, not as 3 constant.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. That's it.
Okay, so once we further discuss and get to know the other constant, you will see that how all the six constants are identified in the case of the simplified two-body problem. There we have looked at the relative motion of one with respect to the other.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, any other question anybody is having?
Sir, can you show the figure again which shows the orbital element?
This one, yes.
So the capital omega, which is the nodal angle, will always be taken from the x-axis to the
From the
ascending-
x-axis, this is standard. This is measured from the x-axis from the OX line and toward the ascending node. This is ascending node. In is ascending node here, and this is descending node. So orbit is going like this. Satellite is rising here and going down here. So you can see that the moon is coming out of the XY plane and this is going out here and there.
So for all planetary bodies, x, y, and z axis are defined.
In the case of the Sun, Earth, Moon system, you can see this XY plane will be the ecliptic plane. This is written as ecliptic. Ecliptic plane. Ecliptic plane is the plane of orbit of the Earth, roughly. Okay, they are also for the solar system. The angular momenta, it's a conserved. The total angular momentum of the system, whatever the planets we are having, it's combined together. It's a constant, and this is called the invariant plane. It constitutes an invariant plane. So with respect to that, also everything can be measured. Okay, but nowadays everything is